Orchid Essences Set 3, The Spiritual Journey. We've taken a look at the essences of the first set of orchids, which follows an ideal inner development, and then at the second set, whose essences deal with the problems of everyday life. If you missed them, please watch the 2 videos, the links to which can be found in the description below this one. The matter of thinking inevitably leads to the question of meaning. No matter where we turn and what culture we look at some point in their history, people ask themselves the question of meaning, where from and where to. Now that we've managed to achieve progress in the quality of life with the help of causal thinking, the question simply had to arise: why are we here at all? Of course, this question is not so easy to answer. Religions provide answers, sometimes paradoxical ones. Christians, for example, believe that there is a creator who would give us a cause, but his ways are unfathomable, which indicates that we cannot understand what his goals are. Otherwise, the ways would not be unfathomable, but rather comprehensible, possibly even predictable. Other beliefs answer the question differently, and orchids, of course, do not answer it at all. They are what they are. They can only accompany us on our spiritual journey through life by promoting basic human skills and qualities that serve spiritual knowledge, regardless of which creed you adhere to. However, let's stop philosophizing and take a closer look. The first orchid in the set is called Listen, and that is exactly what it strengthens in us, the ability to listen. Children seem to be more receptive to inaudible and invisible signals. Personally, I had a good relationship with my grandma, and it happened more than once that our phone rang shortly after I had thought of her. I had similar experience later when callers brought bad news. I had a dark suspicion that something had happened, and shortly afterwards the phone would ring. I'm pretty sure the ringtone doesn't change when someone has something bad to tell you. It's usually the same tone as when someone with good news calls. Others seem to be even more sensitive and receptive. A friend woke up screaming in the night, but not frightened by a nightmare or a burglar or anything else. In retrospect, it turned out that her boyfriend, who was in England at that time, had died at exactly the same time. So it seems that there are people who are susceptible to the transmission of information through undetectable channels. Have you ever had a feeling that the atmosphere in a room was thick with tension before you entered it? Then you probably don't need this essence. Listen is therefore not only to be understood as an aid to listening in the literal sense, but rather promoting mindfulness in a more general sense. Do the undertones get lost in conversations, especially in arguments? Do conflicts arise because you don't understand the other person and their intentions simply because you know what they're going to say anyway and aren't really listening? In that case, it could improve the communication to listen less to the inner chatter, the mental autocomplete mode, and the inner judgments that like to push themselves between what is said and what is received. This applies to all sensory channels. Anyone who tends to make a judgment at first glance has little chance of taking in the visible in all its nuances. Perhaps there is a work of art behind the graffiti. Perhaps animals and plants are trying to tell us something. They do anyway. Everyone recognizes from the hanging leaves that the plant is thirsty. But perhaps there's something else to learn. Listening opens our senses, makes us receptive and directs our focus towards what is being communicated to us and away from what we would like to hear. Even if you talk to yourself, listen inwards and meditate. If you never get answers to your pressing questions, you can try making pro and con lists. Opening up to information coming through previously unknown paths from undiscovered sources is a good prerequisite for the following orchid, which is called dream. It is about dreaming, and not just the dreaming that takes place during sleep, but also during the day, even if it works slightly differently. However, both phenomena we refer to as dreams are addressed by this flower. Yes, even daydreaming, which gets children into trouble at school, is not a bad thing. The disadvantage is that it takes you out of the present. This can be useful when the present is unbearable, but less so when focus and concentration are required. Those who work with dangerous machines should be wary of it. On the other hand, renouncing daydreaming also means renouncing access to the wisdom of your unconscious, which sometimes links things together in your imagination that seem incompatible at first glance. Flashes of inspiration and realizations often come about when you simply let your mind wander. This is relaxing and promotes well-being because it usually takes place in the alpha state when our brainwaves adopt a calm and soothing rhythm. Furthermore, daydreaming can also motivate you. When you visualize your unconscious goals, it strengthens your desire to achieve them. You can also become aware of your dreams in your sleep, which can be an overwhelming experience. Sometimes so overwhelming that you wake up immediately, which is why you need to practice a little. But if you succeed, you can act out in your sleep what you can't do during the day. If it becomes dangerous in a dream, you can turn away and concentrate on something nice. Or you can face up to the danger. After all, it's not real, and if things get dicey, you can wake up. In this way, training in fantasy or dreams enables you to face reality, which can sometimes be quite harsh, in a self-confident and focused manner. You just have to practice a bit. The orchid dream will be of great help to you with it. Some burdens that can weigh down your life and soul are reproaches, accusations, or even vengefulness, which seem to have a life of their own inside of you. A Chinese proverb says, "He who seeks revenge shall dig 2 graves." If you want to get back at someone, the resentment will cause you problems. You carry the accusation around with you like a burden and hope that once your opponent has been punished, your life will be easy again. However, it is just as likely that there will be no satisfaction because the desire for revenge has become ingrained in your personality and turned you into a disgruntled cynic, which you will remain even after revenge has been taken. The art of forgiveness is the lesson of the orchid Forgive. Forgiveness can have a liberating effect. I no longer have to expend energy on continuing to hold a grudge. I can finally close a chapter and move on to something new, such as my own well-being. Forgiveness is self-empowering. Otherwise, you will add to the pain of betrayal and loss, the slander and the damage you have suffered, a polluted life, your own. By declaring your adversary an enemy, you give him power over yourself. It is reminiscent of the image of pushing against a wall until it hurts. If you take just one step to the side, it stops hurting. But the feeling of having to do something about the wall makes you accept the pain your effort will cause. The fact that your enemy is still alive and possibly well makes you suffer. Can you make it easier for an opponent? A spiritual journey is basically unthinkable unless you make peace with adversaries, but even more so with yourself. If I had to leave the world today, would I want to take the burden with me? And if I didn't have to leave the world today, would I still want to carry my burden tomorrow? Anyone who finds carrying such burdens useless, obstructive, and energy sapping, and would rather leave them behind, no matter where the journey takes them, can use forgive to bury the hatchet and turn to the future in peace. Forgiveness heals the wound. It gives you peace of mind and prepares you for progress. To a certain extent, forgiveness is the prerequisite for the following blossom: trust. As social beings in a complex world, we are dependent on others. This is quite obvious on the surface. If I don't know anything about making clothes, food or medicine, I'm dependent on people who know something about it. Without trust in these people, relaxation is impossible. If I have to be on my guard at all times to make sure that the person I'm dealing with isn't trying to cheat, deceive or even poison me, my life becomes pretty stressful. Of course, you can peel apart your breakfast roll to check whether a malicious spirit has baked glass splinters into it. Look over the electrician's shoulder the whole time to prevent him from putting the hairdryer under high voltage, or make sure that the mechanic doesn't cut my car's brake lines. This may sound exaggerated, even absurd, but many people behave in a very similar way in their important relationships. A rather chilling, but nonetheless true example was the man who lived with his girlfriend in a lonely house in the woods. His lack of confidence made him draw a barely visible line across the dirt track with a stick so that he could check at any time whether his girlfriend had left the property while he was away. It's often outsiders who don't realize what they're missing out on when they don't trust anyone. But everyone else can use a little boost of that energy from time to time too. A life without hurt and disappointment is unavoidable. A life without relaxation is unbearable. The Orchid trust serves to restore the original trust. It brings peace to the soul and brings you back to life if you have lost your way somewhere. I just wanted to say thank you. I took too much for granted. Maybe I've noticed that when I come home late again, the children go to the neighbor's house where they are warm, get something to eat and feel protected. Then I go over and bring a little something to express my gratitude and also express it in words. This helps to maintain good relationships. It is based on trust and it adds the aspect of gratitude. Perhaps this can be the starting point for taking care of other things too, maybe even myself. How long can I neglect my body? Yes, I know, I should exercise more, I should eat healthier, I should take a break more often, I know. When I discover the gratitude within me, my motivation suddenly changes. Let's not confuse gratitude with guilt, which some people do. If I receive something good, the thought of having to give something back in return arises in some people. It is natural to feel that way. But wait a minute, that wasn't a loan. You weren't expected or mandated to pay back. Gratitude is not a currency. Gratitude is a feeling that creates peace, that fulfills you, that satisfies you. And just as you can forgive yourself, you can also be grateful to yourself. This may be a rather unusual thought, but just give it a try. I'm grateful to having a beating heart, for example. You can't force gratitude, you can only feel it, and for that you have to be willing to feel at all. Thank Orchid breaks down inner barriers that can block your view of the good things in life, so that sometimes fear and mistrust overshadow the feeling of gratitude. And now we have come to a point where the previous development has reached a climax. We dare to take the big leap. We have purged ourselves of expectation and experience. We have learned to love and to trust, to forgive and give thanks. What is still missing is the trust in the unknown, the courage to make a decision which we cannot know whether it is the right one. Never being able to know everything is a stumbling block built into the very essence of life. Again and again, you have to make decisions based on half knowledge. Of course, I know that I'm in love, but I don't know if I still will be in 5 years. I long for this job, but what do I know about the wisdom of the boss, the ability of my colleagues to cooperate, and the economic prospects? Maybe the place will be out of business tomorrow already. Our minds are limited to such knowledge. Jump can only work if other orchids have prepared the terrain beforehand. You have to do it right or not at all. The gorge cannot be crossed in 2 short jumps. Deciding things with half a heart ensures that the other half of the heart doubts and will be disappointed. This is about the inner leap into a new dimension of existence. If you try to take your old self with you, you might find it too difficult to cross the gorge. Jump is the orchid for life's forks in the road. Who dares wins, and those who don't dare can start with this essence. The final orchid for the spiritual journey through life aims to utilize a true superpower in people. The most important task with it is to learn to control it. Otherwise, it will control you, and the effects can be both positive and negative and beyond our control. You feel like a plaything of fate, which sometimes means well and sometimes not so well with you. Some people call it a placebo effect, when a drug without active ingredients makes you feel better. But it doesn't do that at all. What makes you recover is the conviction that you will get well again, not the medication, as this has been proven to be ineffective. But that is only one pleasant side of the power of conviction. Other test subjects develop side effects when they take such sugar pills. This is called a nocebo, and its effect is also based solely on the power of thought. But who decides whether a drug cures us or makes us ill if it doesn't actually do anything? And do we really want to let others, whoever they may be, decide for us? This final orchid called belief is about learning how to utilize this power, becoming the master of your thoughts, feelings and decisions. Becoming aware of your beliefs and, if necessary, modifying them or letting them go completely. In a spiritual sense, it can also be helpful to let go of all beliefs for a certain period of time and empty yourself completely internally. In meditation, for example. In material life, on the other hand, beliefs can provide the necessary orientation. Belief helps us to decide for ourselves whether we want to take placebos or nocebos.